So, welcome back to Afri-CAN. A few weeks ago, we had a discussion with Oxfam on how far we should go in introducing innovations that challenge local culture. Today, I want to focus on how this translates into the education that we provide to our youth. How can we shape the youth in a way that makes them unique critical thinkers? To address this question, we'll be looking at the particular context of Somaliland, and I have invited two outstanding members of the Somaliland community, Muna Ahmed Jama, who is Pharo Foundation Somaliland's head of education, and Dr. Jama Musse Jama, the founder and organizer of the Hargeisa International Book Fair, which is indisputably the most important cultural event of the year in Somaliland. Muna started Pharo Foundation's education department in Somaliland from scratch and has been working for the foundation since 2018. She has over 15 years of experience working in the nonprofit and academic fields in East Africa and North America. She holds a BA in psychology from the University of Ottawa and a master's in early childhood studies from Ryerson University. As for Dr. Jama Musse Jama, he is an ethno-mathematician with a PhD in African studies, specializing in computational linguistics of African language. Goodness me. His current research focuses on the role of heritage, art, and culture in education, development, and state formation, including settlements and cities expansion in Somaliland. He's currently director of the Hargeisa Cultural Centre in Somaliland and a research associate at the Development Planning Unit, University College London. He is also a fellow of the Rift Valley Institute and senior associate researcher at Italy's National Research Council at Istituto di Linguistica Computazionale Antonio Zampoli. For me, Jama embodies the concept of the Somaliland intellectual, but not any intellectual, the kind that is not living in his ivory tower, but fights for his ideas to have a real world impact. In France, we would say that he is an intellectuel engagé in the tradition of my favorite writer, Albert Camus, who combined his uniquely powerful writing with the pursuit of social justice throughout his life. And ideas and culture can change the world, I believe. And Jama reminds us of that. So without further ado, let's kick off the discussion with a question to Muna. As head of education for Pharo Foundation Somaliland, you are confronted every day with the challenges of providing the youth with an education that is globally relevant, but also anchored in idiosyncratic local realities. In your experience, are global influences increasingly creating a generation of young Somalilanders that are uniform global products without knowledge of the richness of their cultural heritage? Alice Muna.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Francesca. I'm so happy to be here with both you and Dr. Jama. I'm so excited that we're having this discussion, and thank you for that question. It's a tough balance, right? And I think this is a challenge that we're facing all the time. The global influence on education is massive, right? Especially with the internet and social media, and shaping how young people see the world. It's very easy to see that we're trying to push kids to be part of this global generation, one that's kind of plugged into global trends and technology and ideas. And while that's important, it can sometimes come at the cost of losing touch with their own culture. So in my experience, young Somalilanders are becoming more familiar with movies and fashion from other parts of the world, or even the global tech trends, right? Than they are with their own rich history and traditions that make Somaliland unique. And kids are absorbing so much information from outside through social media, the internet, and even sometimes the curriculum, right? And so they might not be getting enough of their own heritage and culture and language and even local traditions. And this is really facilitated through technology. And technology is alluring, and it's vast, and it's so convenient and accessible. And here's where it gets a little bit tricky, right? We sometimes see technology, often we see technology as advancement and indigenous culture as something that's backwards or outdated. And so this creates a real disconnect for young students or kids. And they might start to see their parents as less advanced or even less connected to the world, especially when they're using technology in ways that their parents can't even keep up with. And this makes it harder for students to turn to their parents as the teachers of their culture, because they may feel that their parents don't have the same modern knowledge. And this issue, when kids don't see their parents as the gatekeepers or the teachers of the culture, there's a gap in the cultural transmission. And I think I've heard Dr. Chama mention this before. Something then needs to fill this gap. And this is where social media comes in. It becomes the new source of culture, and kids look online to see what's trending, what are people wearing, how are people speaking, and even what values are being pushed, right? And so while social media can be a great tool, it can also be a place where kids are absorbing cultural ideas that might not necessarily align with the local traditions, and even sometimes even contradict them. And so what's the solution, right? For us in Pharo School Somaliland, our ethos is to teach locally relevant and globally competitive knowledge. And we try to integrate the Somaliland curriculum with an international curriculum. And so this way, students can really see the value in their heritage, understand it, and carry it with them as they engage with the wider world. It's really about teaching students that they don't actually have to choose between being part of the global community and staying connected to their roots. They can actually do both at the same time, and that's how they will truly thrive in today's world, right? That's essentially it. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, very, very well summarized. I was going to ask you actually what the solution was, but you just volunteered it beautifully. Okay, super.
It's all at the school level, right? It's all at the school levels, basically. I think that's the point that I was trying to make. That it really is at the school level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I guess similar question actually to you, Jama, from me is whether you think that a global uniformization of culture is killing critical thinking. Specifically to that angle of critical thinking, I would like you to comment, Jama.
Yeah, thank you so much, first of all, Francesca, for having us, and it is a pleasure and really honor to share with Muna this conversation and with you. And yes, Muna said quite a lot about the topic, and if the goal should be how to cultivate a mass of critical thinkers who excel globally, of course, because of the challenges facing humanity are global by nature and in nature. This perspective, however, must be grounded on the strong local context, as Muna underlined it. And because of formal education, and that's what we are dealing with in here in this conversation, builds upon the tools and the knowledge already provided by one's local environment and daily life experiences. We cannot miss that. So the schools in Africa in general, and specifically in Somaliland, should take these, let us say, locally rooted tools to the next level. That is sharpening these kind of tools and prepare future thinkers, because of we are talking about specifically the critical thinkers, to be globally competent, yet not overly dominated or isolated by their local rules. And this is the win-win case that Mona was underlining. So to answer to your question, yes, indeed. There is a risk of killing critical thinking if we are not truly global. Because of if we pursue a kind of a misguided form of global uniformity, where part of the global is ignored, and then lost the local context, then that's not in my reading. That's not per se not global. But in practice, if we ignore indigenous knowledge and the wisdom generated by the past thinkers in centuries, yes, definitely it will be put in danger. But the win-win case is exactly at the other corner, simply because of if we put, and that's what I like the conclusion of Muni's intervention. If we include somehow and put together the new technology, put together what we call the new way of even teaching, the pedagogy forms that's happening with the local context, then that's when we are winning, and it actually become an add up. Instead of fearing that the global uniformity kills the critical thinking. In this case, if we are truly global uniformity, then because if we include our part of, let's say, students, part of background, identity, what they feel so close to, they will feel so proud and be part of the world. So it will be a contribution. Definitely the now impending fifth industrial revolution driven by the technology, artificial intelligence, or what they call now Internet of Things, will fail to benefit humanity if it's not managed in a partnership with the people. And that's what I like. If we do the technology and follow the technology done by others by say, we will fail. But if we partner with the with people, let us say, who are grounded in their local lively experience, then that's the win-win case that the school is really in this part of the world should focus.
Fantastic.
There are some examples. So a globally connected future requires really a locally rooted human agency. So I am putting the two parties together, human agency and the technology.
Beautiful. So let's pursue this technological idea in the midst of our discussion of global and local aspects of education. Maybe if I go back to Muna on this, as Jama was mentioning, artificial intelligence is taking over in many ways, and it is certainly reshaping education of all things. So the question for me is how we ensure that African pupils become technology shapers as opposed to technology takers. That is, a youth that can actually become more ignorant in the process of utilizing AI and eventually becoming replaced by it in the context of a shrinking labor force. Big question for you, Muna.
Big question. Big question. Big question. Another great question, Francesca. Thank you. AI is definitely changing the face of education everywhere and in Africa as well. It brings huge opportunities and also some serious risks, right? And if we're not careful, we can have young people that are using AI without understanding how it works, making them really dependent on tools built elsewhere and eventually replaceable by those same tools. So the big question is, how do we make sure that peoples from Somaliland are become creators of technology and not just users of technology? First, I think we really need to start teaching kids about AI and digital skills very early on, way before university, probably by the primary school level. But it doesn't mean you just give them tablets or you teach them how to use ChatGPT, but it means helping them to understand how these tools work, how to code, and how to think critically about the tech that they're using. We need to use beyond just using the apps to actually building them, right? Secondly, I think we need to make sure that AI education in Africa is relevant to the African realities. So in our case, AI education in Somaliland needs to be grounded in the realities of Somaliland, right? So students should be trying to solve local problems in Somaliland. So for example, it could be the water scarcity problem. It could be farming, right? It could be education or healthcare. And this means that students would be using data from Somaliland. They would be using data Somali language, and designing with the local culture in mind. And so if we're training young people only to copy solutions from other places, they'll never learn to lead in this space in Somaliland. And another big thing that we have to mention is access, right? Many students still don't even have access to internet or devices or even stable electricity. So without solving this, we're going to just end up setting up an unfair system where the rich or the urban kids can participate in this AI revolution, right? And I think everybody, of course, deserves a chance to create and to learn. And we've already mentioned the students. Now we have to also mention the teachers. If teachers are not trained in tech or AI themselves, how can they be teaching AI, right? So we need to be really supporting teachers with the right tools and a time to learn this technology. And shifting from this rote learning is also part of what we need to be focusing on, and focusing on problem solving, creativity, and collaboration. And these are skills that AI can't necessarily replace, right? And so we talked about the students and we talked about the teachers. Outside of the classroom, we really need to start building up ecosystems that support innovation, like tech hubs, for example, or even in Hargeisa, we have coding boot camps. And so we need to start creating mentorship programs and funding for young entrepreneurs. If young Africans can see that they can build a career and create real impact with AI, they'll be more motivated to get involved as creators. In short, the goal is to create the Somaliland youth, the skills, number one, the mindset, number two, and the support that they need to lead the AI revolution, really, essentially. And if we get this right, we can actually not only keep the jobs and protect the jobs, but we can create new industries, right? Created by Somalilanders for Somalilanders. I think that's it.
Amazing. I think listening to you, Muna, I feel like we now have a roadmap for a pretty complicated question. Thank you so much.
No,
But-
thank you, Francesca. Thank you, Francesca. It's a great question. Absolutely fantastic question. Thank you.
And actually, it everything you've said kind of builds up to my next question to Jama, which is again, if we start from this premise that there will be a degree of AI substitution, if you like, you could even argue that even many of the STEM jobs themselves will become redundant. So one possibility is to think about it, in the following ways, to say, well, maybe we should emphasize, as Muna said, creative, but also maybe more humanistic subjects in the curriculum, because they will be the last ones that AI will master, such as psychology, philosophy. And in that sense, Jama, do you think that we could eventually see a return to a more classical education as a backlash to AI? I think that really is a question for you, because you are a true intellectual.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. And this is not happening only in Africa, but it will happen also somewhere else very soon. Because at the end of the day, artificial intelligence or AI will remain a tool created, manipulated, and used by humans. So it is simply a tool if we think in that way. The great list that Muna has done, the 3 points, I would add one for, which is the one that's answering to your question, which is the data. Artificial intelligence will need absolutely data, and the future belongs to those who control data, to those who generate data, to those who own data, who manipulate the data, and feed as such to the artificial intelligence, if you want. So these will be the masters of the world. And the cultures and civilizations that will fail to provide their identities to AI are doomed to fail with them. And humanity will also fail in that case. So definitely, yes. These are the elements, this is the last element that the AI will ever need, even if the technology side, the mathematics side, or the physics side of building physically, the technology will be substituted by by the AI itself what will remain for the humanity and for the human is the thinking, the creative thinking, the data that will be generated. So ultimately, the data in terms of context, in terms of localization, in terms of thought formation, in terms of languages, different languages, in terms of critical thinking tools, remain the property of the humans. And yes, that's where we see, and definitely it's happening in somewhere else as well. Africa has the numbers. At the end of the day, in this sense, the advantage lies within Africa because of the wealth of people in terms of number of people, and the data generated by the people and provided by the people will grow in the future, and it's growing up to now. From the concept of, let us say, Ubuntu coexistence to the traditional methods of reconciliation in Somaliland, young African critical thinkers can formulate and contribute valuable insights to the AI itself. And that will answer what Muna was asking. AI should work for the local context, not from outside and replicating, what happened elsewhere. So ultimately, as an example, and I want to conclude with this example, the fact that UNESCO recently registered the customary law of the Isa people living in Djibouti, Somaliland, and Ethiopia demonstrates this potential. We can provide and we should provide the data to the technology, to the thinking, to the critical thinking that unfortunately in the past has been ignored. So we in Africa owe to the humanity a wealth of data and a wisdom that has been in the past, if you want, demolished it or ignore it. And in this case, AI give an opportunity, in my opinion. If we put together, we are given a chance not to be left behind. No one, because of the technology will be for all. Hope it's the content and data will guide and will be the master of the world. And our students should be trained for that.
Very interesting. When I think data as well, I think, data can be manipulated.
Yeah.
So that would be an interesting sort of thing to think about as well.
That's what we train for our future critical thinkers, to how the data will be manipulated. And if we leave behind, on that, that will be the serious, problem for this matter.
Very interesting. Super. Okay. So I guess just to wrap up, I'd love to hear from both of you. Therefore, as a conclusion, how we create critical thinkers at school. We've heard a little bit about that already from Muna, but if you'd like to provide a summary of your views, that would be great. Maybe we start with Muna.
Very good. I love your questions, Francesca. If we really want to create critical thinkers in our schools, we need to really rethink how we're teaching, right? And not just what we're teaching. Right now, in a lot of classrooms in Somaliland, and I think in many parts in Africa, the focus is still on memorizing facts and repeating what the teacher has said. And that doesn't really encourage students to question things or to even think for themselves, right? It just trains them on how to pass exams. And to change that, teachers really need to start asking open-ended questions that don't even have one right answer, right? So maybe instead of asking, what year did this happen? Teachers can ask, why do you think this happened? What's the significance of this event? And what would you have done differently? And I think that gets students to think deeper and to express their opinions. I also think that we need to make space for discussion and debate and even problem solving within the classroom. So that when students are working in groups, for example, to solve challenges or to analyze case studies, they're learning how to listen to other views, to defend their ideas, and to think on their feet. And I think these are the same skills that are needed in the workplace as well. And as we have all mentioned before, these are the skills that AI cannot easily replace. And so another critical point, obviously, is going to be is that students need to feel safe in the classroom so they can speak up, right? If kids are afraid of being wrong or being punished for asking the wrong questions, they won't feel comfortable to try. So we need to create classrooms where curiosity really is normal, and mistakes are normal. And we can never talk about what's happening in the classroom without mentioning teachers again. Teachers themselves need support and training in critical thinking, right? Teachers are taught in a traditional way, so expecting them to teach critical thinking without showing them how is a bit unfair, right? And so we need to invest in helping teachers build those skills themselves as well. And so in simple terms, we need, number one, we need to let kids ask questions. We need to encourage debate. We need to focus on how to think instead of what to think. And we need to train teachers to guide the whole entire process. And I think this is how we have critical thinkers in Somaliland.
Fantastic. It's good to hear all of this because this is all that I recognize in the Pharo schools. So, I think we're doing a good job.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Jama, please tell.
I was just listening, Muna, and I was reflecting recent trip that I have done in Sheikh at the Pharo school. It was really, really, really. I was born in this country, and I grew up and I was educated. But when I came back, after staying quite a bit outside of the country, going to Sheikh and seeing what Munu was describing in that school really, really gave me the pleasure and hope. And so well done, Pharo, Sheikh, please. Having said that, to answer to your question, I think, and exactly happening in that recent trip is focus on student-centered education rather than as it was happening in the past, teacher-centered education. So that's the key and fundamental task for critical thinking and making critical thinkers. So that's a fundamental point touched also by Muna. So student-centered. The second point is, in my opinion, and this is also another thing that I have noticed, it is localizing the tools that we are using. I mean, the pedagogical tools that we have, we can find similar things, if not more powerful and culturally sensitive things within the society. So localizing the tools that we are using. If I am teaching mathematics and want to teach 2 + 2 = 4, my use a mathematical game coming from my own cultural root rather than one take coming from, I don't know, something that the students are not aware of. They will feel, and I'm talking about the young groups, but even in the upper level of education, if we give the students to sort out the real problems rather than focusing on talking about theoretical framework that can work globally, if we focus using the international method, but sorting out a real issue that's happening in front of their eyes, they will be more powerful and they will be more, critically thinking, focusing on finding a solution for a real problem that's in front of them and they can test. So I think that's the way that the future of education should go. And I'm happy that really I have witnessed what was happening in that school, and I hope that project continues and can be replicated and formalized within the Somaliland general curriculum.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you witnessed with the climate change workshop?
Yeah, exactly. Starting from the idea of, let's say, student-centered, we gave a problem. We cited a problem, and then we didn't even tell how to sort out the problem. So they had to discuss among them. They had to come up with and try some of the, solutions, some of the, techniques that failed. What I liked of the students, they told us they tried in this one and they failed for that reason. So they came up with another solution. So we left for the entire day to work together. Young female and male students who were working hard for the almost 4 hours and coming up with a solution. And I was, going through and listening sometimes in their discussion, and that made me really feel proud, but also really hopeful for the education in Somaliland and what was happening. So they came up, amazing ideas to tackle the issue of the climate change. One last point is, everyone is talking about the climate change today in the world globally because it's the global challenge. But someone want to try to come here in Somaliland and talk about the solutions for the climate change or the impact of the climate change as it's happening in the Scandinavian countries. Well, we have always problems, but definitely we have different problems between Somaliland dry and where the water is extremely scarce and fundamental, rather than the issue of having, the problem of more water coming to the cities because of the climate change. So talking about the climate change uniformly globally doesn't sort out the solution. What I like here that the students applied real situation that's happening in their houses, in the surrounding of the school, outside of the school, and they came up with the local solutions. And that's what really we need. If we want to create critical thinkers, we have to give problems that they need and feel be part of the solution and that they can test and it work.
Fantastic. Wow, that's been a great discussion. Really, I think we've touched on a lot of major issues, right, through this angle of education and critical thinking. So yes, I feel wildly optimistic that we can now tackle them together at a global and local level.
We are in the right track. Let's say in that we are in the right track. Work hard, and we don't need to get solution for ourselves. We will take to the next level, and then the solution will come with the future critical thinkers of Somaliland.
That is the scientific method. Absolutely. I love it. Getting closer every time. Brilliant. Oh, thank you so much, both, really.
Thank you, Francesca. This was amazing. Thank you so much.
No, you're very welcome. You were both amazing. So, yeah, fantastic.
Thank you, Muna, for always giving tips that's really needed. Thank you. For this Somaliland. We really
Thank you. No, thank you so much. I feel like I've learned so much from you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you,
Super.
Francesca.
You're welcome. Yeah, have a lovely rest of the day.